Welcome to Government Contracting Weekly, sponsored by AOC Key Solutions Incorporated. Government Contracting Weekly is the only television program devoted exclusively to the competitive and dynamic world of government contracting. A world where coming in second place is not an option, but where principle-centered winning is the only approach.
Good morning and welcome back to Government Contracting Weekly. I'm Hilary Fordwich from Key Solutions. As our regular viewers know, Key Solutions is the force behind Government Contracting Weekly. And our core mission at KSI is to help you, the government contracting community, win or retain government contracts. So it's fair to say that the area of business development is what we live and breathe every day. That's why we're dedicating today's special show exclusively to the critical issue of business development. And I'm delighted to have with me here today three guests who have spent much of their careers as real leaders in the area of business development. First, I'd like to introduce a dear friend, Jon Love, Vice President of Strategic and Business Development for CSC. Good morning, Jon.
Good morning, Hilary.
And also, I'd like to introduce Robin Portman, also a dear friend, and Executive Vice President at Booz Allen. Good morning, Robin.
Good morning, Hilary.
And last but not least, never least, I'm joined by one of my colleagues, Jim McCarthy, the owner and technical director of Key Solutions, and a dear friend. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Hilary.
Good morning. So there's a lot to cover this morning. This is a major issue for all of our viewers. Let's get right at this. I'd like to start with you, Jon, and can you give our audience a perspective in terms of your background? Obviously, I know you're at Pitney Bowes for many years, but your background, your expertise, and your role there at CSC and the way you approach business development.
Sure, Hilary. I've been around the industry, believe it or not, 30 years this year. Started my career right out of school at AT&T. Spent almost 20 years at AT&T, Lucent, and Avaya. As you know, I was president of Pitney Bowes for many years and stood up their government contracting group over there. And I recently joined CSC about a year ago and working in mostly the defense and intel part of the business.
Yeah. And Robin, thank you, Jon. Robin, your background and what brought you to Booz Allen?
Well, I've been with Booz Allen for nearly 20 years. I really started in their defense business, but also worked some in the security business as well as in the health industry. And most recently, a year and a half, I was asked to stand up the Business Development Center of Excellence for Booz Allen, which is now reporting directly to our COO.
Which I think is actually wonderful because Booz has really consolidated all of that business development under you, which is great kudos too.
Right, but we are still very much embedded in the work that our accounts and account leaders are doing. So we really are very matrixed in how we approach business development at Booz Allen.
And Jim, in case any member of our audience doesn't yet know about Key Solutions, share with our audience Key Solutions and what we're doing in the government contracting space.
Thank you, Hilary. We've been in business for 30 years. We celebrated our 30th anniversary in this past October. And what we do is we help clients win government work. I mean, that's essentially what we do. And we, so far to date, have delivered over $124 billion in contract awards to our clients. So we're very proud of that record.
Mm-hmm. And so in terms of the record that KSI has and also the individual records, what do you do, Jon, when you're looking at the way to go about business development in terms of capture, the proposal phase? What phases do you break them down into and how do you approach business development at CSC?
Well, first of all, Hilary, business development is really not just about selling to a client. I mean, really what business development should be about is partnering with the government, with the client, helping to understand their missions and helping them deliver on the expectation of their clientele. So good business development really is clearly going in early, understanding what is it that the government is trying to achieve, helping to develop that mission, understanding the contract vehicles associated with that so that they can make the acquisition and really make it such that they're able to deliver on the service to the citizen or the mission to the soldier.
So you're not in the abstract coming in trying to download something on them, you really get it.
No,
yes.
I mean, really, I mean, if people buy from people, obviously they know, like, and trust.
And have that relationship.
And you have to have the relationship, and the key to business development is building that relationship up front, early in the acquisition strategy, understanding where they're trying to go, and then making sure that when it's time, you respond and make sure that you're delivering on those things that the customer really wants.
And wants and needs. Yes, Robin.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, business development for us at Booz Allen is becoming intimately familiar with what our clients are all about, understanding their challenges, understanding the requirements, and then in a very creative way, coming back and saying, let's look at our arsenal of solutions and innovations and how can we bring that best to the forefront to help those clients. So business development for us is all about relationships, understanding those clients, and not focusing just on one particular procurement, but about the organization and what our clients are trying to achieve.
So it's a far broad, you're both saying a far broader view than
Absolutely.
that one little issue. But then Jim, when you're brought in and KSI is working with a client, we're focused on that issue, but I think we also do many broader things as well, from the whole strategy as well as the capture and proposal work.
That's right. I like the term from brain to gain. In other words,
Yes.
we're involved from the very beginning when it's a thought in a business development executive's mind, or a wish list, or something he or she wants to chase, all the way till the time the contract is signed and the company has gained that business. And within that period of that life cycle, if you will, we tend to divide it into three pieces. There is the opportunity identification, there is the strategy development and capture, and then there's the proposals. And we're involved in all three of those.
The whole
circles.
life cycle across that link. And what do you think, would you say is a phase that you view as the most important at your organizations? What do you think, Jon? The most important, or do you focus your energies and efforts and funds in one arena?
You know, I think that the most important aspect is getting the strategy right up front, working alongside with the client to understand where they're really trying to go.
Because what do they say, if you don't know what port you're going to, any breeze or
That's
blow
right.
you there?
That's right.
Yeah.
I can
Mark
always
Anthony?
find a way.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I mean, many companies I've seen over my experience have wait too long. They want to react to what's going on way downstream in the process, as opposed to coming alongside early in a game, clearly understanding what the strategy is behind this and where this is really going to go. And again, making sure that you're addressing those key points way up front. That drives everything else in the cycle that Jim talked about.
Yeah. What do you say, Robin, to that?
I
the cycle?
absolutely agree with that. Starting early on in that market sensing sort of phase, understanding the environment, requirements, and then being able to test your ideas with clients. And you really can't do that once the procurement has started. So you can
Right.
bring in ideas and solutions and really work with your clients to see what kind of sticks and what seems to make sense for their culture.
And I would think you're advocating that, Jim.
Yeah, during the opportunity phase, I think much attention should be spent to not what opportunity to chase, but which ones to discard early, so that you're not spending time and resources in a vain pursuit. During the capture phase, the challenge that we try to help our clients with is to identify the needs and the wants of our customers, of our clients, and then spend all of our time focusing on the latter, the wants. And then during the proposal phase, I think one of the biggest challenges is to translate the strategy from the corporate executives into that proposal document and avoid what I would call the least or lowest common denominator effect. Whereas, for example, by the time a proposal is ready to be shipped, it goes through multiple reviews: red teams, review teams, pink teams, gold teams.
All the different color hats, yeah.
And it seems like each one of those review teams is destined to try to chop out some value to it in the interest of just getting the document out the door, something they can all agree on. So as a result, the proposals, if you're not careful, will tend to sort of reach the lowest common denominator of acceptance, and that's not a winning proposition.
That isn't a winning proposition.
Yeah.
Speaking of lowest, you know where I'm going to go with this. What about LPTA? What about lowest price technically acceptable? That has been a word that has been bantered around, or a phrase has been bantered around. I've heard no one say, "Oh, gee, I love that." No, that's the way we want. That's the way we want to do business. And everybody says that's not the way the government should procure. What about LPTA? Everybody jump in. What do you think about LPTA?
Well, LPTA is not a great acquisition strategy for all types of services. Let's face it, some things are commoditized, and LPTA does make sense and does bring the best value to the government. But there are certain types of services, solutions, and requirements where LPTA just clearly doesn't play a role. And I think we, as leaders in our respective organizations, have to take a look at that and say, legitimately, if it is an LPTA acquisition, can we really deliver at the price points that the government is going to expect for that service or for that solution? And if not, use the off-ramp and
Yes.
decide to no bid.
That off-ramp that Jim often has advised clients actually to do. We've had opportunities where you've actually said, no, don't go for this.
Right.
Yeah, I was trying to think the last time that somebody has shopped around town for the lowest price surgeon, for example.
Yeah, right.
There's some things you don't want low price, right?
Or go to a cardiac surgeon who's done this exactly one time.
Yes, right. Yeah,
But he is cheap.
Yes, but he is cheap, yeah.
But you know, interestingly, I think that LPTA, while it's no doubt it is a phenomenon today, I think it contains the seeds of its own demise. And by that I mean, eventually, one of two things are going to happen. One is that the government's going to be burned on a critical national security program because they have picked the low price, low cost provider versus the best qualified. And that's going to hit the new, the headlines, and, and it's going to cause a big stink. The second thing, which I think is an inevitable sort of conclusion of LPTA, is that because the market is so sensitive to price right now, it's going to tend to drive all prices down to a relatively low level, which means that there's really no way for the government ultimately to discriminate between bidders because they're all hooked around the same
there anyway.
price.
Yes.
So it's going to return back to technical eventually anyway, because they're going to need to decide why should we, of the two companies, who are we going to pick? Well, the one who's got the best technical approach.
And who's the astronaut who said something like, "Oh, it's very comforting to know that when I'm up in space, the contractors bid on this rocket, which is the lowest price." And what do you, John? How do you view LPTA?
Well, I think that Jim and Robin are right on target. I think that the government is number one, going to have to realize that at some point in this process, it's not worth the risk to go low. I mean, you're not going to want to risk the environment that you're in, especially for some high technology solution, just to say, I got the cheapest price. In the long run, they've got to be able to find a way to look at the best value, what's really good for them, and what's really going to bring them what they really intended, which was give us the best solution at the best price. The second thing, I think Jim is right on target, programs are going to start to fail. And unfortunately, you're going to have to spend more money to go in and have someone come in and repair that situation, which is going to cost you more in the long run. So I think that the more you train the acquisition force to really look broader around what's really in the best interest and what's the right way to buy, until then, you're really going to struggle with this whole LPTA thing.
So you all have the opportunity, obviously, in different times. You're the incumbent or you're the challenger. So my question first, Robin, to you is, would you rather be the incumbent or would you rather be the challenger?
Well, let me just say, if you would have asked me that question 5 years ago, it would have been an easy answer. I would have said clearly, being the incumbent is an advantage. These days, there are a lot of changes, and we frankly take nothing for granted. So clearly, when you're the incumbent, you of course have all kinds of experience with the culture of the organization, the mission of our clients, how to deliver in their organization and in their environment. But today, with things like LPTA, which we just talked about, being the incumbent does not necessarily mean that you've got
an advantage
that significant of an advantage.
Right. And you shouldn't be fat and happy and have incumbentitis at all. No
Absolutely.
one can afford to anymore.
Keep bringing that innovation, keep refreshing your staff, greening your staff, keep bringing those new ideas to your clients. Otherwise, you become stale.
Yes, and any firm wouldn't. And what about you, John? Would you rather be the incumbent or the challenger?
Well, I think Robin's right. It's tough in today's environment because there are very few new acquisitions that are coming out, so everyone's trying to take share from each other. And when you're in that kind of market, and I think we're going to be for a while, everyone's trying to come up with a creative way to take your business. So it really becomes important that the incumbent come up with some creative ways to do things differently than they're doing today, which is very difficult because many people will sit there and think, well, I've got good performance scores from my clients, my CPARs look good, I should just continue to do what I'm doing, just tweak it a little bit and be a little bit better. And what we're seeing is, in many cases, it takes a significant change in the way you do business.
That's not good enough anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I had a contract a few years ago when I was at Pitney where we had been there for a very long time. And in order for us to win it, we really had to go in and say, look, scrap everything we've been doing before, and we've got to come to the table with some new insights. I mean, one thing I love about the way CSC is approaching things, we're pulling commercial insights from our commercial divisions and bringing them into the government and saying, hey, here's some way you should really think about this. You should think about doing things differently. And we're putting those onto our current contracts and say, here's some insights that we bring that we've been able to work in the financial institutions, and we've been working in the chemical industry, and we've been able to solve some very tough problems there.
So they see those best practices that you have.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
My thought is that there's only one time when I'd want to be the incumbent, and that's when the government's considering whether to extend the contract and then to negotiate it sort of on a social. Of course you want to be the incumbent, but other than that, I think in today's market, incumbents, if they're not careful, will fall prey to a false paradigm or worldview. They're sort of stuck in it. It's worked before, it's going to continue to work, we just got to get through this. Whereas the challenger is not so encumbered. The challenger has a chance to be more creative and more inventive, and of course to underprice if necessary the incumbent. The incumbent, many ways, knows too much, so it tends to load things into its pricing volume as if this is how they're going to operate it, when in fact they should be bidding just to the RFP.
That's an absolute
Yes.
great
Yes.
point. You know, we know more than we should know when we go into these competitions.
yeah.
So we're building more into our solution or in our proposal than is really being asked for by the RFP. And another problem is our staff on client site might say, the clients love us. You know, there's no way that, you know, we're not going to win this. You sort of fall back into this false sense of security.
Incumbentitis.
Incumbentitis.
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
That's what you hear.
And then on that note, though, Robin, when you say about you know, things could kind of change and morph, what about when you're in a situation where, you know, you are a challenger, say, and you do come up with a great strategy? To Jon's point, strategy is so important. So you've got your excellent strategy, and you in the executive suite and have set that's established, that's where it's going. But by the time it goes through all the reviews that Jim talks about, this is kind of morphed, and then what ends up going into the box, the proposal is somewhat different in the end. How do you prevent that, and do you see that? Does that happen, and how do you control that in your organizations?
That does happen.
It does,
and
yeah.
I think the great way to prevent that is to do all of your homework way up front. The more you know about the client situation, as I talked about earlier, testing solutions with your clients, talking to your clients early and often, that prevents this kind of morphing of the mission and morphing of the solution along the process, because you're well informed.
And you've got to stick to it.
And
Everybody
you
stick to it and stick to the leadership. Yes. And what about Jon? Have you seen that? Does that happen?
Well, you know, at CSC, one of the things we try to do is have really good processes in place in order to ensure that the win themes that we establish up front are continued throughout the process. And you know, you have to have good, strong capture executives that are put in there that are saying, okay, let's go back to the strategy and win themes, and making sure that we're continuing this throughout the whole process, so that by the time there's a proposal there and we've got a red team activity, we're not going out changing our strategy way down the stream.
No.
And that takes leadership and discipline, right?
Yes.
Right.
Because left to their own devices, most writers will say, well, I have a better theme. I'll invent it this way. I'll say it that way.
And that's too far down. They shouldn't be doing
And
that
all
there.
of a sudden,
yes.
you have what we call the dog's breakfast, a mixture of everything.
Right, right.
But you know
Yes.
what? I think it begins with a fundamental flaw that most companies exercise. They're asking the wrong question in the first place. When an RFP comes out or they hear about an opportunity, they say to themselves, can we do that? Can we perform this job? And usually the answer is, yeah, sure we can. So off they go. Instead of asking that question, what they should be asking is not can we do the job, but can we win the
it,
job?
yes.
And that takes
Yes,
you down a whole
that's
different
critical,
road
it is.
in terms of building your strategy.
And that's ever more important, because now economically, none of your firms can afford to put hundreds of thousands of dollars and just waste it. And as Jon mentioned, there's so few RFPs, no company can afford to do that.
Yeah, if I can do a shameless plug here, I'd like to just try that. We're fortunate enough to have both these companies, Booz Allen and CSC, as clients. I am determined before it's over, we're going to invent a way to have a cake and eat it too. In other words, we're going to figure out a way to win both on LPTA and on technically acceptable by setting that standard. And I think there's a way to do it. So we're looking forward to working with them.
And the way to do it is?
That's to hire KSI and
Get the answer.
No, but we're going to do both.
What do you think are some of the changes that could be made, really to the government's benefit in the procurement process?
Well, you know, the government right now tends to, first, they're dealing with a couple of challenges. Number one, there's a acquisition talent issue right now, because so many people are retiring and they're really hurting in the acquisition.
We're always hearing
forward.
that, yes. Everybody
So
sees that.
They got to work that strategy and making sure they're bringing the best talent in and being able to invest in that area of the business. This acquisition community is critical for being able to manage this whole process. I think number two, clearly being able to step back and look at what's best for the client or what's best for the government in the long run, not just buying on price, not just buying cheap, but make sure that you're buying and considering technologically, is this the right solution for us? Is it really going to drive innovation? Are we going to be able to reduce costs as a result of putting in a robust solution? Not just saying, you know what, I've got 3 of these and that one looks like it's the lowest price.
Yes, that's excellent. And would you concur with that, Robin? What would
You
your
know, I would
advice
actually
be?
build on that.
Yes.
I would say that, and we're already seeing this change in a positive direction, where even for services procurements, the government asking for better justification for your level of effort that you're bidding. So almost a basis of estimate for some services that heretofore we really just didn't see that kind of a requirement. So I think that's really a positive direction, and really
that we are going in.
Right,
yes.
and really asking contractors to justify how they're coming up with these prices so that you can really understand the realism of those prices in an LPTA environment. So that's a positive thing. I think another thing that I would really like to see is an even better integration of the acquisition side with the technical client side. We've seen that pendulum swing back and forth, and I think both parties coming to the table together have something really powerful to bring. They need to bring it together.
Yes. So you're saying some synergies.
Yes.
Yeah, and John?
You know, one thing I want to add here too. I mean, the government has got to get to the position now where they are. I mean, stop being so risk adverse. Okay, we're so worried about protest and building a protest-proof acquisition, as opposed to really believing that we build a strategy and this is the right thing for us and it's the right way to buy this, and put out the procurement based on what you really believe is true, as opposed to protest-proofing every RFP.
Every single RFP. And Jim, of course, you have the frustrations that probably CSC and Booz Allen have because you represent them, their clients, but also you see the frustrations even from the KSI side. You've got two areas you see in advice.
There's no question there's frustrations in the entire environment, but when I think about it in the final analysis, while our procurement, shall we say, system, while not perfect, is probably the best on the earth. Okay, I mean, there's integrity in it. And
compared to any other nation, yes,
okay,
absolutely.
so what we're talking about is ways to fix it. Now, if you're going to let me speak sort of like out of the box, here's a thought. I think the real problem that we're facing is that it's very difficult for companies to get to meet and know their customer. Okay, and that's a real problem.
Because of the lack of the communication and the forums to be together, yes.
So which
is why NCMA is good, FCA is good,
yes, but some minor suggestions, and you know, this is what I think. One would be for the source evaluation board members to be identified in advance, so that the companies will know to whom they're writing, and therefore can maybe tailor their proposal to meet the needs and the wants of those specific individuals.
Versus more so in the dark.
Right, and by the way, there is at least 2 agencies that are doing that. They have a pre-proposal conference, and they just say, and here's the members of the board. And they go
which
right down
agencies are doing that now?
Yes. Okay, so another thing is to maybe consider the use of more plug numbers. In other words, to level the playing field a little bit. We see it now where the government tells you for supplies and materials and parts, use this number. Well, use that more to sort of level the playing field, and it takes it to one extreme that has worked for the Department of Energy. And I call it the M&O model, the management operations model. And what they do on these jobs, believe it or not, is they don't even accept price proposals. What they do is they tell the industry, this is the amount of money we have for this program. Now, what can you do for it? Put your proposal to that. So you don't have to price it. You don't have to go to that. And if you want to price under it, you can, but that essentially sets the ceiling.
It, so you know where you are, yes.
I think that might be way
that
we
makes
don't
a lot of
think about
sense.
This engagement with industry and it enables our clients to really get the best possible solution, because they're able to have a back and forth, really be able to iterate on ideas and innovations.
More collaboratively than it's been before.
Some of my best contracts, some of my best contracts have done that, where the contract officer is not afraid to talk to the community and say, look, this is what we're really trying to get done here. What are your best and brightest ideas? Or even more, as we award the contract, this is what we really intended to do.
And that's what the commercial sector does.
Right.
So it's more
we have
logical.
Real conversation.
Collaboratively.
We got to have real conversation.
Right.
John, what if, as part of the RFP, the government said, here are the top 10 problems we have that we would like you to solve. And they, instead of making us guess what they are, here they are.
Absolutely.
Give us the best
here they are. And they can
that.
spend less time on the details of all the details in the RFP, because they do it working collaborative. They don't have to spend that time up front.
It's like any good relationship, good communication.
Right.
Let's talk about what you're really trying to get done here, and let's work together to resolve it.
And one other thought would be, in this LPTA environment, why don't we maybe require oral proposals? A lot of agencies have oral proposals, you know, at the end of the procurement. But why not, if you're looking for a way to distinguish yourselves and everybody's price is about the same and the technical acceptability has now been leveled, maybe the only thing that could really possibly discriminate you again would be the notion of who your team is. So let's have an oral dialogue as part of the procurement
I think
process.
the thread here is a clear, well-defined and transparent process that is communicated early on, and I think that would enable us all to be able to play on a level playing field.
Yeah, and John makes a point about the protest proofing. That's a lot of money and a lot of time spent, and what it does is it drags the whole thing down, right?
Yeah.
If contracting officers saw their role as in part is also as competition advocates, if you will. Their job is to promote competition because that's good for this nation. That's good for the
And that
economy.
is what we want in the long run.
But for
And
some reason, they
that's
hold
value.
themselves up and
Yes.
are not really approachable, as if they're in some ivory tower. And we
right.
need to
Right.
work with them to break that down. I
Break that
think.
down. And what, as Robin says, best value. And what about, a good proposal? There's always good proposals, bad proposals. What's a good proposal? What's a good proposal writer also? Or sorry, who is a good proposal writer?
From my perspective, first of all, a good proposal is one that's written to the requirement. Okay, I mean,
Not esoteric and
well, not
yeah.
You want to be creative and you want to express yourself. Well, write a novel.
Yeah,
A good
yeah,
proposal,
right. Yeah.
it should be written to the requirement. It says this is what we have to offer. In our case, we're bringing cloud, big data, cybersecurity solutions to the table, and this is how they're going to solve that problem that you defined. Again, make that problem well defined up front. We understand where you want to go, but that proposal writer's job is to make sure that we're writing to exactly what those specifications are.
Absolutely. My
Yes.
mantra is point, evidence, so what? Make your point, provide your evidence to that point, and then tell them
second
why
guess.
they
Yes.
care.
Yes.
Why
Yes.
should you care about this? What are the benefits?
Love that. So what? And Jim, you do this day in, day out. Key Solutions is providing proposal writers. Talk about what are the best proposal writers and what do you look for and what do we offer?
Well, the best proposal writer is one that's part of a team and feels that the group will benefit from the collaboration and teamwork of everybody. Where a best proposal writer is one who contributes not only to his or her section, but to the embetterment of the entire proposal, other sections that he or she may not be writing on. A good proposal writer will look out for the interests of the company, will back his or her boss, make sure that they have, are watching their backside and all these other different things. So that's part of it. And then a good proposal writer is one who can comply, who knows how to answer the mail and do it with an economy of words.
Which is actually wrapping right back to what John said. They've got to be compliant. I think the other thing is you've got to have a proposal writer. I know that we have people on staff that are being formerly in the media. They're good at writing sound bites. They're going to get tight. You can't have a diatribe, to John's point. People that are creative should go write a novel. People with diatribes, no one reads that anymore. It doesn't matter how good they are. So thank you. Your expertise is being valued this morning. Really, really value your being with us this morning. So that brings us to the end of this week's edition of Government Contracting Weekly, and I hope more than anything else you learn some really valuable lessons that you can put into play tomorrow morning when you return to work. I'd like to thank our guests this morning, Robin Portman. Robin from Booz Allen, thank you for coming.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And also Jon Love from CSC. Thank you, John.
Thanks, Hillary.
And also last but never least, Jim McCarthy, my colleague at Key Solutions. Jim, thank you.
You're welcome.
Also, of course, I'd like to thank you, our viewers, from once again making Government Contracting Weekly a regular part of your week. See you next Sunday.
You've been watching Government Contracting Weekly, sponsored each week by AOC Key Solutions Incorporated. Government Contracting Weekly is the only television program devoted exclusively to the competitive and dynamic world of government contracting. For additional information, comments, questions, or suggestions, please write us at governmentcontractingweekly.com.